The story about the dolls is that when I was living in Guatemala in the early 80s, I was about 12 years old back then, and living in a little house with my siblings and my aunts and my uncles and my parents or my grandparents, and we all lived in this little tiny house, and we were a poor family. And the way that we survived was by making these dolls. We used to make these dolls, and we used to dress them with the outfits of the people that are native to Guatemala. And we used to take these dolls to the airports or to the stores that catered to tourists. So tourists would come and buy these dolls, and those dolls provided the survival for our family. Now, these dolls are called worry dolls. And those dolls, basically what they do is when a child has a problem or a nightmare, the parent gives these dolls to the child when they go to sleep. And the child is supposed to tell these worries or the problems or the nightmares to the doll and put them under their pillows. The parent is supposed to sneak up in the middle of the night into the bedroom and take the dolls away, therefore taking the problems away. So the making of these dolls also took problems away from our family because it provided financial sustain to our family. So whenever we manage to sell a lot of dolls and we make a lot of money, my mother will celebrate by making a huge meal for the whole family. But even during those times when we had a lot of money, my favorite food was always black beans from my mother's kitchen. Now, in the mid-80s, Guatemala was in the middle of a horrible civil war. A lot of people were getting killed in the army, on the guerrillas. Innocent people were getting killed. Whole towns were being wiped out. So the news weren't really telling good news about Guatemala. In fact, they were telling people not to come to Guatemala to visit anymore because it was a dangerous country. Therefore, the sale of the dolls took a dive for us because there weren't that many tourists coming over to buy those dolls. So there were times when the only food that my mother could afford to buy for the whole family was black beans, which was fine with me because that was my favorite food. But as things continued to get worse, there were times when my mother didn't have money to pay for the electrical bill or the gas bill. I remember that during those times, the beans that my mother kept in the fridge would spoil after a couple of days. To this day, I could clearly see my mother adding baking soda to the pot of beans to cure them so they wouldn't smell bad and they wouldn't taste bad, so we could eat them after they had spoiled. Things continued to get worse in Guatemala, and my parents saw no other choice than to emigrate to the United States. They left us in the care of our grandparents and uncles. Now, after a couple of years, my mother was able to bring us to the United States. We made the journey undocumented, and we crossed the border to Guatemala and Mexico, and then we crossed the border to Mexico and the United States undocumented. It was a real difficult trip. It was very hard, but we managed to make it to the United States safe. I remember when we got to our mother's apartment for the first time, and she opened the door, and she was so happy to see us, and we were crying because we were happy to see her. So she decided we're gonna go out and celebrate. I'm gonna take you guys to a special place, to a restaurant that is special to celebrate that you got here safely. So she took us to McDonald's. And I know to most people this is funny because McDonald's is a fast food restaurant. Anybody can afford McDonald's. But back then in Guatemala, McDonald's to us was a special place that was reserved only for special occasions. Maybe somebody's birthday, maybe somebody's graduation. We were poor people, so McDonald's was a fancy restaurant to us. So we went to celebrate here in Chicago to a McDonald's. And we were excited, and we were surprised to see our mother speaking a little bit of English, and we were excited to get our food. But somehow, maybe because it was a different country, maybe because it was a different city, maybe because people were speaking a different language, it didn't feel quite right. It didn't feel so special. We had our breakfast, and then our mother took us on a tour seeing. We went to see the city. We went to see the city with our mother. She took us to the Sears Tower. They would always be the Sears Towers to me. She took us to the Lincoln Park Zoo, which is the big zoo in Chicago. Then she took us to the lake to see the lake for the first time. And there we met with a friend of our mother who was from Guatemala and had been in Chicago for a long time. And when our mother told him that we had just arrived to Chicago, he said, hey, let me buy you guys lunch. Let me take you to a place to celebrate. And we're thinking, here we go again. So he did took us to a place. He took us to a fancy Latin restaurant that had an American flavor. And then he said, I'm going to order the best meal for you guys, the most expensive meal, the best meal that they have here. You guys are going to love it. They serve us black beans. And we were surprised, and we were laughing. But we were laughing mostly because the beans that this fancy restaurant had, to us, they tasted like beans that had been cured with baking soda. We didn't want to be rude, so we ate whatever we could of the beans. And after the meal, we went our separate ways. I remember that our mother said, hey, let's walk all the way back to the apartment. It's a beautiful day. You guys go see the lake. And we did walk for hours and hours and hours. When we finally got to her apartment, we were tired. We were hungry again. So our mother went into the kitchen. She prepared a meal. And we all sat on the table, on a little table in the kitchen. My mother started to pray, and I pretended to be doing the same. So while my mother and the rest of my family was praying, I looked up, opened my eyes, and at that instant, when I finally saw myself at my family, at my mother's kitchen, surrounded by my family, about to eat black beans from my mother's kitchen, I finally fell asleep. Thank you.